Killing off a beloved or main character can be a powerful yet risky move for a creator when producing a story. It can often come out of nowhere, acting as an unexpected plot device that, if used properly, can act as a source of motivation not just for other characters, but for the audience as well. However, as of late, it's been seeming as an overused plot device put in place when a writer has no idea what to do with the character, or when they just want to find a way to force the story forward. You're probably wondering what my motivation is for making this video. Well, before I tell you that, I want to give you a spoiler warning for any piece of media that I mention. It'll be quite hard for me today to talk about anything and keep it spoiler free at the same time, as the topic at hand is killing off your characters, but I'll do my best to stop the details there and not give you anything extra. With that out of the way, I can give you my main motivation for making this video, which happens to be Grey's Anatomy. Unfortunately. My girlfriend happens to be a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, so she urged me to sit down and watch some of this 19-season show, and while I'd argue that the show starts in a good place and does have a lot going for it, it's probably one of the worst shows I've ever seen in regards to killing off its characters. I remember the first time Grey's Anatomy killed off a beloved character of our somewhat regular cast. It came as a bit of a shock and even served quite well in becoming a source of motivation for the other characters on the show in regards to how their respective stories progressed. In this instance, killing off a character could be seen as the right move, as it was a solid way of progressing the story. The only issue was that they didn't stop there. The writers of Grey's Anatomy continued to use the death of their characters as a plot device over and over and over again, to the point where every season there was at least one or a few main cast members who died. It got to the point where I was almost placing bets on who I thought was gonna die next. This repetitive use of death as a plot device led to me becoming desensitized to the death of these characters, where the first time it happened, the death of a character felt impactful and deep. After the dozenth time, it was unsurprising and meaningless. The more characters died in Grey's Anatomy, the less I felt inclined to get attached to them. By the time I had made it to the later seasons in the show, I didn't really care about what happened to most of the characters, as it was quite likely that the more likable the character was, the more likely it was that they were going to kill them off. Another show I can think of that I'm sure is going to be somewhat obvious to most of you guys is Game of Thrones. I remember watching Game of Thrones for the first time and feeling completely shocked when they killed off their first main cast member. It was honestly the first piece of media that I had ever watched that went so far as to kill off their main characters. I was familiar with the concept of writers doing unexpected things with their characters to further the story, but I was completely new to the idea of permanently removing them from the story. Unfortunately, my shock and awe at the idea of killing off characters kind of faded as the show went on, and more characters that I loved continued to die off. Game of Thrones is in a weird gray area in regards to killing off characters, because the death of its characters is oftentimes extremely crucial to the plot. However, in later seasons, it definitely feels like they begin killing off characters in an attempt to keep this whole charade of, we're not afraid to go so far as to kill a character up. Similar to Grey's Anatomy, this kind of led to me having a very minimal care about any of the characters that they showed on screen. By the end of the final season, I didn't even feel the slightest bit fazed by the copious amounts of character death that they shoved into the end of the show. One last property that I want to rant about in regards to killing their characters is Marvel, but in a slightly different way. In Marvel, we rarely see the death of any of our main cast members except for in certain situations. In this way, Marvel does a really good job with their character death, as they allow us to grow attached to their characters, then kill them off in a way that feels impactful but not overdone. What does feel overdone in regards to character death for Marvel is instead the death of their villains. Marvel has made it a recurring theme that at the end of their movies, the villain has to die. While this has worked in many instances and even led to the audience coming out of the theater in shock when Thanos was the first Marvel villain to actually win against the heroes, this is at the cost of sacrificing an impactful story where the villain means more than just a one-time and inconsequential conflict. Take Gorr the God Butcher in the new Thor Love and Thunder movie, for example. This was a serious villain capable of absolutely destroying entire pantheons worth of gods, and thanks to the recurring theme of the villain has to die in this one movie, Gorr was nothing more than an unimportant villain who in the grander scheme of things served barely any purpose at all. Overall, killing off a character can be the right choice if you really want to rally your audience up for something. However, going so far as to actually kill your characters is probably something you want to reserve for the most impactful of cases, as this prevents the loss of your character becoming something that your audience grows desensitized to. But of course, this was just an opinion of mine. Feel free to disagree with me however you want and do whatever you want with your own writing. After all, that is what makes writing your own story fun. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.